staat op 26 centimeter, die mag zo blijven. So he is asking me, is it okay the height of the projectile? And I said it's okay, 36 centimeters. It's just under the booster.
There are two identical chemical weapons dismantling facilities here at Holthurst Forest. Together, they are capable of processing and making safe up to 50 chemical weapons shells every day. This happens 5 days a week, every week of the year. If the EOD service finds more than that, they stockpile them on the base.
You can see saw blade. You can see the projectile. This is a cooling. This is cooled air that is blowing on the saw blade, so that the temperature from the saw blade is not getting too high.
Sometimes they're able to process less shells per day. This is because the larger shells take longer to mill, as the metal surrounding them is thicker.
Sound of the milling machine, but sometimes when we have heavy shells, like 4.5 inch British, you can feel it through the whole building. You can feel it on here and on the walls when we are milling. You have really the tremble of the milling machine, really heavy.
And the large British shells.
Yeah.
When working with chemical shells, it is important to work slowly and gently. Even small shells take about 25 minutes to mill the booster off the top of the shell. Because of this, the footage you are seeing is sped up many times its actual speed. As you can see, the metal underneath the rust is perfectly preserved. This is the same as the chemical weapons agent contained in the shell. Also perfectly preserved. Once the explosive tip of the shell is separated from the body of the shell, it is stored and sent to the contained detonation chamber for disposal. All the soldiers we spoke to have smelt chemical weapons. They receive higher pay than soldiers in other units because they are at higher risk of developing cancer later in life. The final part of the process is to pour the liquid into barrels. What you are seeing here is the pouring of about 4 litres of perfectly preserved liquid phosgene into a plastic barrel. The liquid is then sent to an external contractor for destruction in a high temperature incinerator. £5 billion was spent on the Iraq War. The Middle East is now destabilised. People want to kill us. Here are your chemical weapons, Mr. Blair, your weapons of mass destruction. I'm beginning to see your legacy unfold. John Scarlett's department and the MOD knew about this problem, as the Belgium EOD service make repeated requests for information from the British MOD.
So I hear he's on the end of his air. I hear a whistle, so it means end of the air. They have to come out. A new team has to go in, and the new team has to come here to second sunrise combined.
Yes. The Belgium EOD service tell us that British chemical weapons they find are more volatile and dangerous than the German and French. They tell us that they cannot figure out some of the chemical properties, and this remains a danger to their personnel who have to handle them.
Oké Peter, je mag het karretje dan plaatsen en je mag naar binnen gaan naar OSG.
They tell us that they made repeated requests for information from the British Ministry of Defence without reply. As we know, the British Ministry of Defence has known about this problem before the Iraq War and several decades before. We presume they have acted to protect us from this threat. They told us that we were under immediate threat from Iraq within 45 minutes, which was not true. They knew all the information shown in this program and have done nothing. Part of our final test of the security service and the government's incompetence, we're about to see if we can get one of these weapons through customs and back into Britain. What we're doing here is restoring a World War I shell to its former glory, and we're painting it of the colours of mustard gas, which is a chemical weapon. It had a blue background, and later on we're going to add a yellow cross. It's our last day at Ypres, and further to the restoration of our World War I relic, we've painted a cross on it just to represent what a mustard gas shell would look like. And part of the experiment is to see what checks are in place at customs to prevent this sort of ordnance coming through. Obviously it doesn't look like the real thing, but certainly should be picked up by any kind of detection or search. So we're now heading back to London. The road trip continues.
Yep.
Carlton, Ashley, and you, Your Highness.
Hey Rich, do you reckon you're going to get all that in, mate?
No. At least I'm stuck behind.
Do you think we need a bigger vehicle?
Next time, don't worry with me.
Check my work visa.
Wapo, wapo. Yeah. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate.
We're back in England.
No checks.
There's no checks.
I love the silence.
Just come through the Euro Channel and there was no checks. I had this beside my leg in the footwell. We made no attempt to hide it, and we've proven that a chemical weapons attack could be launched on London quite easily by finding something like this on the side of the road and bringing it back into London. There's no security to stop someone from doing that, and we've proven that you can find them along the side of the road. The Ministry of Defence, with its huge budget, produced a dossier and decided to go to war with Iraq, which has killed 60 British soldiers. And the Ministry of Defence also knows the history. They know what they fired in relation to chemical weapons. And they still haven't cleaned up the mess that was created all those years ago.